All right, today we're going to dive into something really fascinating and honestly a little philosophical. It comes from the mind of the brilliant physicist John Wheeler. And get this, he thought that one of the biggest things holding us back from really understanding consciousness might just be a simple three-letter word we all use all the time. So Wheeler kicks things off with this really powerful idea. He's basically saying, you know how we like to put things in neat boxes? Conscious over here, unconscious over there? Well, he says that line is starting to fade. And for a physicist like him, who saw the universe as this giant web of information, that's not just some philosophical thought experiment. Nope, it's a real fundamental problem. I mean, if that line is all blurry, where does one thing stop and another one start? And that, right there, leads us to the core of this whole thing. If consciousness isn't just a simple on or off switch, what happens to the main word we use for something that is conscious? I'm talking about the word who. All of a sudden, that little word becomes really unstable and super tricky to use. Okay, so let's get into it. What is the problem with who? I mean, it seems totally harmless, right? But Wheeler argued that it carries a ton of hidden baggage, and that baggage is actually getting in the way of making real discoveries. Wheeler's whole point is that the word who it's too specific. It's too narrow. Think about it. The second we use that word, we're almost automatically, without even thinking about it, narrowing our focus down to people, or at the very least, to life as we know it. He had a name for this problem, anthropic connotations. Now, anthropic is just a fancy way of saying human-centered. So by always defaulting to who, we're putting ourselves, humanity, right at the center of what consciousness even means. And that's a huge problem because it stops us from even being able to think about consciousness in other places, like in complex AI or in animal groups, or, hey, maybe in forms we can't even imagine yet. It kind of traps our science in the here and now. Now, to really drive this point home, Wheeler used this absolutely brilliant analogy from way back in the history of science. He called our modern view of consciousness a profoundly anti-Copernican idea. So what does that even mean, anti-Copernican? Well, think about it. To be anti-Copernican is to make a very specific and historically massive mistake. It means you think you're the center of the universe when you're really, really not. Let's just do a quick history check. For thousands of years, everybody just knew that the Earth was the center of everything. It felt obvious, right? I mean, just look up. But then Copernicus came along and proved, nope, we're just one of many planets zipping around the sun. It was this huge, humbling moment that basically unlocked all of modern astronomy. Okay, so here's the kicker. Wheeler's whole argument is that we are making that exact same mistake right now, but with consciousness. We just assume that our human version of it is the gold standard, the one true privileged center. He's saying, hey, what if our consciousness is just one of many, many different ways that the universe processes complex information? All right, so if we accept that our basic question is flawed, well, what do we do about it? How do we fix it? Wheeler's solution was pretty radical. Stop asking the old question entirely. It's time to start asking a totally new kind of question. And this right here is the critical shift in thinking. Instead of trying to pin down an identity, trying to label something a who, Wheeler says we need to focus on a process. We should be asking what things do, not just what they are. He actually laid out a path for us. First, he says we have to just ditch the word who for a bit. Just set it aside with all its baggage. Second, let's start looking at the much bigger idea of communication. And then finally, this is the important part, we get really specific and focus on communication that's used to establish meaning. Now that is a process you can actually study. You can observe it in all sorts of systems, not just in people. You see how this just reframes the entire conversation? We go from asking who is conscious, which, let's be honest, just leads to arguments and bias, and instead we ask, how is meaning established? That new question is so much more dynamic. It throws the doors wide open to studying AI, animal communication, maybe even physical systems, all in a totally new way. And in the end, Wheeler brings us right back to where we started. See, he's not saying we should throw the word who in the trash forever, not at all. He's saying that science has to do the hard work first. And someday, what we discover is going to force us to expand what we mean by who in ways we can't even dream of right now. Which, of course, leaves us with one last huge question to chew on. If we actually follow Wheeler's advice, if we start looking for meaning being created in all these places we never thought to look before, what happens to our world? What happens to our own place in the universe when we finally, truly expand the meaning of who?